your inner world is a direct reflection of your outer world.
Habits, routine, letting go.
But most people live completely reckless fucking lives, dude. Like, are we still?
Yeah, we're live now.
We're live.
Yeah, we're super live. We're super live. We just
That's
no
good,
intro,
that's good.
whatever.
That's good. Yeah, it was an era. It was like, yeah, I feel like life comes in kind of like chapters, not even chapters, like
Agreed.
sections.
I
Like,
agree.
there's a lot of little chapters in life, but Logan was kind of like in the middle of chapter 2 for me. Chapter 1's like, you grow up, you kind of figure out your shit, you go to college. And then chapter 2's like you figure out your career and kind of your purpose and things like that. And like chapter 3 is like when you have kids and a family. I'm going to chapter 3 now, but Logan was like right in the middle of chapter 2 for me. It was like I started, I'd made money, but I didn't really have my purpose yet, and like my company was we're still figuring shit out.
Yeah.
And Logan was a fucking killer.
So Logan, before we go further, Logan,
Yeah,
you wanna intro our guest today?
Yeah, so we have a very, very awesome guest today. Been a huge influence on me. I worked for him for a year when I think I started with you when I was 20. I was still a pup, man. And so Jared Goetz, who, I kind of want to let you talk a little bit about it because you've done so much. But just like a serial entrepreneur, definitely one of the smartest people I've met or been around. Like I said, huge influence on me. So yeah, I kind of want to let you give a little bit of an intro because I also feel like too, you've been off the map, haven't really been online doing all this kind of shit for a while. At least it seems like peripherally. So I would love to let you kind of give an intro. I obviously know it all, but like are all about like kind of what you've done. So
Yeah, for sure.
excited to have you on the associates and
Yeah, just been having a lot of fun so far today. I have been kind of, you could say, off the map, right? But it's actually, I think the opposite is true. I've been like on my game, working on my own inner world, learning, growing, focusing on my company, because I know that in doing so, your inner world is a direct reflection of your outer world. And I feel like a lot of the world has it backwards. A lot of people think that like you need to get your outer world in order first in order to feel the way you want to feel. And I've realized a long time ago that that's not the case. And I've been able to prove it to myself on several occasions that by getting my own shit together, by getting my habits in order, by feeling good, by working out, by meditating, by reading, by staying true to myself, the universe spits out your outcomes for you in unexpected ways. And I've also came to realize that we live in a universe of unlimited possibilities. So to be able to think you can expect how things are going to happen is ignorant. So I've also learned to kind of let go of that. So although I've been, off the grid or not really on
off of social media.
Off of social media, I've been very much focused on my game. I've been at meditation retreats. I've done several plant medicine journeys. I actually have one coming up in a week that have been really profound for me. I've been I have a son being born in April. So, I've been working on how do I be an example for him. And I think that a lot of people, you guys have been, have learned a lot about life at a young age, but a lot of people who is like your guys' age, in the early 20s, late teens, they have it backwards. They think that they have to get the outer world figured out in order for their inner world to get figured out, but it's the opposite. And I think, what I've been doing is I've been working on building a real company, building something of a lot of value because society actually values monetary gain. Like I can go and be on social media right now. I can go publish another book, and I could probably influence a good amount of people. But when I sell my company for, several $100 million, then a lot more people are going to listen to what I have to say so I can have a bigger impact. So although I've been behind the scenes, I've been kind of working on my stuff.
love it.
And yeah.
That's awesome, man. I have so many things that I want to ask you now because it's been, I don't know, 4 years or whatever, something like that, 3 or 4 years. I would love for you to just kind of give people listening, because I think, when you were on social media, it was like a little bit before my time on social media or Nick's time, right? Like we were just kind of getting started then. I remember when I was working for you and like first like Twitter thread went viral, stuff like that. But I would love for you to just give some like context as to like what you've done. So because you have done.
And the context that I have is fixing my mic over here. So bear with me, but the context I have is I remember because I was like, Logan's talking to me about I used to work with this guy, doing agency stuff, da da da, but he never said your name. It's like, who was it? And he goes, Jared Goetz, and I hope I said that right. But
You did.
cool. And so he tells me that I'm like the second fastest growing Shopify store behind Kylie Jenner. So I remember that from like the drop shipping days and like that type of shit. Because I was in that space a little bit, like my stores and whatever that never did well. I feel like everyone kind of touched drop shipping at some point, but that's the context that I have. And that's where I remember you from. But the agency stuff and all this other stuff you had going on, I had no clue because you weren't on social media really.
Yeah. You know, I got lucky, right? When you work hard and you have good energy, you tend to get lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I got lucky with a drop shipping business that allowed me to generate a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And remind me to tell you the story of how I actually physically manifested a Lamborghini through this process. I'll tell you about it. It's actually pretty crazy stuff, and it'll lead us down a bunch of different segues. But I got lucky. I ended up kind of just following my instinct, what's next, and I got into coaching and info products and courses and masterminds, but it was in an area where it didn't feel true to my intuition. Like I was also very in touch with myself. I was meditating regularly, going on long walks, feeling how I feel as opposed to just numbing myself with social media and just moving forward with blindly.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was on the wrong path. But it was tough because I had, 50 employees. We were doing, we had 25 salespeople doing, 200 booked calls per day. And we were making a lot of money.
Wow.
But it was...
And that was on the coaching program?
Yeah, it was in the coaching program.
Okay.
And we were helping a lot of people. It was, a great program. But I didn't want to be the e-commerce guru. Like, it just wasn't... I was like, I could be the e-commerce guru. I'm kind of the e-commerce guru, but it's just not intuitively who I wanted to be. So I took a big step back from social media. I took a big step back from those things, kind of realigned my priorities, decided I want to build a real business. That's when I started building Zendrop.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I know that I want to get back in that social media game. I have a lot of things I've learned that I could share with that generation that are your guys' age and younger. But I know that my path right now is I gotta keep my head down and keep working on what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Because then I'll be able to have a bigger impact.
We've been talking before this pod, though, we just turned the cameras on, and you were saying something about TikTok clips and stuff like that. And you got a young guy that's helping you with that, and you also say you still want to keep your head down. So like, what's the balance there? Are you jumping back into social media? Are you not? What does that look like?
Yeah, I met this kid. He's 17, and he was actually a Zendrop client, and he was like kind of trying to negotiate with us and another supplier, and my head of business development was like, hey, I don't know what to do about this, and I kind of was like, hey man, like you can go work with the other supplier or you can work with us, but you can't just keep going back and forth. I kind of made our point clear, and then he respected that a lot, and he ended up I was trying to work on launching. We were looking at Google Trends and noticed that dropshipping was growing in Pakistan.
Okay.
So I wanted to launch like a dropshipping challenge in Pakistan. And Brian, the kid who I just hired, I connected him with an influencer in Pakistan, and he was able to like negotiate, close the deal, get the ball rolling, all within like 4 hours. I like came back to like 500 messages, and it was like very perfectly executed. So I was like, this kid's got something special. And I also have a desire to give back. I feel like, one person could change the world. So if I can help someone who has a lot of potential, they could help someone else, especially someone that age. And I also needed another right hand. Like when I had Logan around, it was like, I was able to do so much more stuff, and I haven't been able to find someone like you since. And so I reached out to Brian, and I was just like, are you interested in moving out to San Antonio for a year? And I'll mentor you. In exchange, you basically be my right hand. And anyway, he's very good at social media. He's in that world, and I'm going to be basically mentoring him, and we're going to go on morning walks every morning. And on those walks, we're going to record the conversations, and I'm going to start posting it. And if it catches on and, people enjoy it, then great. If not, it's all good. At least I'll be able to, honestly, for me, it's like I just want to capture this stuff for my son when he's old enough to be able to watch it. So even if it doesn't catch like blow up on social media, I don't really care. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
I think it will. I think it'll do really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's interesting how this happened as well.
Yeah.
Because we were sitting there, we're like, oh, what the fuck is going on? We're trying to get to 1 million a month, and it's just we're hitting this roadblock over and over, and we realize it's like fulfillment, and we're like, who can we call? Who do we know? Because we know people, right? Who can we call? And I'm like, what about Jared, man? Why don't you call Jared? And he goes, oh yeah, might be a good idea. So pick up
100%.
the phone, and then we had that conversation, which was really helpful. I appreciate you for taking the time to do that. And now we're here.
Yeah.
And this is super cool.
For sure. It's just like I was saying, it's like you guys are doing good things. If I can share my experience and it can help you continue to grow, that makes me happy. I don't need to be financially compensated for it. We'll hook each other up. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I would love to hear kind of a little bit about, because obviously when I was working for you, it was like very early, like startup days, and it sounds like it's growing a bunch. I would love to just hear a little bit about how what Zendrop is for people who are unfamiliar with it, and then like how it's developed and what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about the power of just staying in the game and staying in the game long enough that possibilities line up and things start working. So many people have no patience. They think that they should they should just work a little bit and they should get these huge outcomes, and it doesn't work that way.
No.
You look at anyone successful, it took them a lot longer than you think. You only see the glory days, right? Anyway, Zendrop's a dropshipping marketplace. If you're a dropshipper, we're the best fulfillment platform in the world. We have U.S. supply chain. We have an operation in China, and we have over 800,000 Shopify stores now that have connected to our platform.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we stayed in the game long enough, and we created a good enough product. Like, I used to focus a lot on marketing. I thought that it was all about marketing, and then I realized that you got to focus on product because the marketing will follow naturally. And if you're a great marketer and your product's not great, you're going to get a bunch of people in and then they're going to leave or they're going to talk bad about you. It's a conundrum. In the past, I thought it was all about marketing. So I started focusing really in the last couple of years on how do we make the best product. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how much money it costs. We're already committed. So how do we make the best fucking product? And that's what we've been focusing on. And, if you look at us now, we have almost 9,000 five-star reviews. We got like 4,500 on Shopify. We got over 4,000 on Trustpilot, and the product speaks for itself. And now we have thousands of people that post about us on social media, and we're getting 5 to 10,000 signups a day. So
Wow.
yeah, it's like
Signups every day or users per day?
signups per day.
New people.
per day.
Wow.
Yeah, which is wild because I never expected it to grow like that.
I remember like when you lined up a bunch of the big influencers and it was like pandemonium, like you marketed it too hard
Yeah.
early in back when I worked.
That's a great point. I used to market everything too hard. I used to think because I'm a good marketer. I just know how to get people to do something. But every company I've started, I've grown too fast. Even Zendrop, I grew too fast. Like you said, we launched Zendrop and we went from like 0 to like 100K the first month to like 500K the second month to like 1 million the third month. Meanwhile, we were not ready to handle all those customers.
No.
And then also the pandemic hit and none of the flights from China were flying to the US, so we couldn't ship anything. So we launched basically into a brick wall. And like going back, I probably would have like launched a little slower, but you live and you learn. And now I know that product is what comes first before marketing.
That's a really interesting just like a thought, because even we've had that same discussion.
I think it was November, December. We're like
post
wait a minute.
Black Friday, like doing all this stuff, and we were like, fuck, we gotta like really like just double down on product. And then we talked to you and we're like, fuck, we need to double down on product like
Again.
3 times harder.
Yeah.
It was just a super funny, and it's funny hearing that for you with Zendrop. And so, yeah, I mean, like you have 5 to 10,000 people signing up each day.
Yeah, organically. Yeah.
So I'm curious with that. Did you stop everything else that you were doing on each of these phases? So like when you started coaching, did you stop the stores? And then when you started Zendrop, did you stop the coaching and the stores, or did you have other stuff running in the background? What does it look like?
In the beginning, I had other things running in the background.
Yeah.
Now I'm 100% on Zendrop. I did make some investments in the past
Sure.
that give me income.
Yep.
I pay myself a salary from Zendrop that doesn't cover my life expenses. I was fortunate to have earned cash in the past, so I'm comfortable. And I have some investments that kind of cover my burn in life. But I'm 100% focused on the business now.
Gotcha.
It's like I think of other things I could do, and then I'm like, well, if I sell my company for, several $100 million, the amount I could have made from these other things that I would have done would be so small compared to.
So you think that's the trajectory, several hundred mil?
I mean, it's very possible. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I can't get into too much confidential information, but
Sure.
we are. I had a very eye-opening conversation with a firm that just sold one of their clients' businesses for over 500 million.
Wow.
They're in a very similar position we're in, so and it's that as you go, it's like your possibilities grow. It's like I never thought that, and then I never thought that. And it's like that's the power of just staying in the game. When you have no patience, when you're down low, you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
It's
It reminds me a lot of what like Alex Becker did, where he does the stores and the SEO and stuff, and then he went and sold the coaching, and then he kind of disappeared off social media. Obviously not nearly to the degree that you did, but then he launched Hyros, and then Hyros was just sold for what 110 something like that.
I think a lot of people have the same realizations I had. Like, thing is, I was lucky to move past the first step fast. Most people never get to the first step, right? The first step is like you make some money, you buy the fancy cars, you get the social media following. Everyone thinks that's the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get that, you realize, wait, I still kind of have an emptiness inside of me. Didn't fill the emptiness,
Yeah.
right? And then you start to really do some, because at that point, you're like, what the fuck? Like, I did all the stuff that I thought I needed to do, right? And then you kind of go to the next step, which is like trying to figure out what fills that void. But most people never make it to the first step. So I was fortunate to make it to that first step quickly, and then probably like Alex, I don't know Alex Becker personally, but he probably went through the same thing and realized, wait, I have all the cars, I have all the money, but wait, hold on, what does this mean?
He talks about that a lot.
But most kids, I don't want to say kids, but most young adults never make it to the first step. And they spend their whole life trying to make it to the first step, when in reality, they could be focusing on things that would allow them to expand a lot faster and more. They would feel better while doing it.
So I would love to talk about that, because I feel like, like when we go back to Miami, we're not going home tonight. Like, we're all going to a waterfront house in North Miami.
That we rented.
Us three, which is like our kind of like leadership team of our company, whatever. Going there just to I think it's like good for how you feel and mindset, and a lot of that stuff I picked up from you and stuff like that. Like, I just remember talking about it a lot, or even like the first week, like I read your book, and then it was like very congruent with the stuff you did. And I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people in the entrepreneur internet space, like they tote a lot of bullshit for like their reasons for success. But I feel like you genuinely like use that from, even stuff we haven't talked about here, but like the event company and like the ups and downs. So I would love to hear, in your opinion, how do you number one, how do you get to that first step fast? Or how do you get to the second step faster? Like, what does that look like for you personally?
It's all about your inner game. Literally, it's like pick some habits and stick to them. Build discipline. Through discipline, builds self-confidence. Through self-confidence, builds an expansive mind and the ability to see opportunities that you wouldn't have been able to see. And then through that, then you can kind of skip that first step, which is like kind of getting lucky with something, earning money. So I think it's all about eating right, meditation, exercise, habits, and routines. And like that's what I've learned more recently in life. And through that, it's like, for example, I think meditation is like a deep rabbit hole we could dive into. Meditation has changed my life tremendously. Meditation is something that in practicing it, you uncover more to it than you thought was possible, and you keep going kind of deeper and deeper, and you're seeing as you go deeper the effects it has on your life. But in order to get there, you have to actually practice it, and you actually have to keep your habits and your routines. What a lot of people do is they'll listen to a podcast like this, and they'll say, all right, I'm going to start meditating and running every day. And they're super motivated. Maybe they did that, or maybe they go listen to David Goggins, and they're like, fuck, I'm such a pussy, I'm going to go start running tomorrow, right? And then they get up tomorrow, they're motivated, they run, and then this next day they get up, they're kind of tired, they push past it, they go for a run. Third day, they're like, oh, my legs are sore, I'm gonna rest today, right? And then they like sleep in, and then the fourth day, they've already, now by sleeping in, they've solidified the neural pathway in their brain that says, oh, I don't need to, and like convinces them not to. So the next day it's even easier to not do it. And then by that time you've already not done it 2 days in a row. So I'll start again next week. And what happens is your subconscious is like, dude, what the fuck? We said we were going to do this and you couldn't even do this. So you don't feel worthy of success or receiving. So when an opportunity comes your way, or a business conversation, or whatever it may be, your subconscious is like, you couldn't even run for 3 days in a row. Who do you think you are being able to achieve this? And maybe your analytical mind is like, damping that down, and it's thinking about, how are you going to do these opportunities? But your subconscious is what drives you. Your subconscious is what really directs you to your end goal. So when your subconscious doesn't feel worthy because you couldn't keep promises to yourself, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to create. So I think it's like picking good habits and sticking to them, and also understanding what happens when you don't stick to them, which is what I'm just talking about. Like understanding the detriment of not being true to yourself.
Did you ever have a problem with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I still struggle with it every day. There's no perfection by any means.
Is meditation your main like route out of that, like realizing and taking like a 360 view of everything? Is that what it gives you?
So for me, if I meditate, I'm much more likely to stick to my other habits.
Got it.
Right? Because especially if it's first thing in the morning, you sit in meditation and your mind's like, how much longer are we sitting here for? Or like, your leg hurts, you should move, right? And you're just kind of, no, I don't need that right now. No, you're taming your animalistic body, right? And then if you want to go, you say you're going to exercise, all those excuses are going to be less loud in your brain. So it's going to be much more likely that you do those other things. But another thing is like, don't overcommit to habits, right? If you're like, oh, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to run, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm not going to drink, I'm going to go to sleep at 9. The problem is once you break a habit, your brain is made up of neural pathways. And if you make a habit, that gets stronger. If you break a habit, that gets stronger. And then it's easier to continue down that path. So I think it's more important to pick a handful of habits
that you can actually do.
One, right, that you can do. And in doing so, you're strengthening the neural pathways of staying true to yourself. And then you stack the habits on. So instead of doing all these things, like commit to reading 1 page a day, or commit to meditating for 5 minutes a day.
It's like getting the prospect to say yes over and over on the phone until they say yes to the product, right?
Yeah, similar.
Yeah.
I was trying to get my assistant to read a book, and he's like, I just keep not doing it for some reason. I'm like, just commit to reading 1 page per day. You could easily do that. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be here. and if you do that, you're going to likely read 10 pages or 15. It's just getting started. My mom, she used to want to go for walks, but she kept breaking her promises to herself. So I'm like, just put on your socks, and then just put on your shoes, and then just walk out the door, and now you're walking. And it's like way simpler when you just think, I just got to put my socks on. Okay, I just got to put my shoes on. But people project their future anxieties into the present moment by overthinking what that looks like, and they don't stick to any of those things that they're doing. So meditation for me allows me to have a better chance of not breaking promises to myself.
Question on meditation. This is something I'm very curious about, because obviously I think we've all heard of meditation, right? Anyone listening to this, I've heard of it, whatever, but I've never understood. Obviously everyone has their own way of doing things, I feel like. And meditation, from my research, is definitely one of those things, right? Not something I've ever gotten super deep into. how do you meditate? How did you start? Like, what's your process for it, and how are you making it valuable?
Great question. And I will say that it evolves a lot over time. Uh, so most people, when they meditate, they're doing guided meditations, like whether they're listening to Joe Dispenza or,
Mm-hmm.
someone else that they have their headphones in. And I think that, when you're doing a guided meditation, it's typically like not like super complicated stuff. It's not like 50 steps. It's like 4 steps, right? It's like maybe you're focusing on your heart and then you're focusing on your breath and then you're, whatever it is. It's typically pretty simple. So I think it's important to do these guided things. I think it's important to read and understand what you're actually doing. Problem is, language is a byproduct of separation. So it's limiting on your ability to communicate what those outcomes are, especially when it comes to meditation. The epiphanies and the downloads you get are so much more powerful than what language allows you to communicate, that in listening to language, you're actually limiting yourself on what you can experience. With that said, I do think that learning through reading or through events or through guided meditations is very important. But once you get to a point where you can kind of understand what's going on, I don't do guided meditations anymore. I kind of like cherry picked my favorite routines. I really love Joe Dispenza. I was just at one of his retreats last week in
Very
Colombia.
cool.
And I do about an hour of meditation every morning. And it starts with a little bit of breath work. And I won't get into we could get into it, but we'll see where we want to go with it. But it's really to activate your pineal gland,
Yep.
which is
Understood.
changes a lot of things, right? And then I focus on opening my heart, which is really what blocks energy from flowing, for about 5 to 10 minutes until I feel good enough.
Yep.
The problem with guided meditations is the whole time your ego is judging, when is this section going to be over, or wait, I want to stay there longer.
You don't even have time to think.
Yeah, well, you're judging the guided meditation, which pulls you away from the meditation. So I kind of sit there as long as it feels right, and then I move on, and I activate each of my energy centers. And in doing so, I have a lot of just downloads of knowledge, and I feel like I believe that my health is more in sync because of it. I feel like I have more sustained energy through the day. So that's my current practice right
I
now.
love that. I wanna try it. It's like, how should I get started?
All right, so this is derived from what I've learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
You can actually look up. He teaches.
I'm
this
familiar with
breath.
him. Yep.
Yeah, there's this breath that he teaches where you're bringing your energy you're actually bringing your cerebral spinal fluid up your spine and dinging your pineal gland. Your pineal gland has crystals on it, and when the crystals get compressed, it turns your pineal gland into a transducer.
You can feel the energy going up your spine, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can pull my energy up.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can feel it.
So yeah,
'Cause
and as
I've
you do
done-
this stuff, you get better at it too.
I've done some breath stuff in the past like that.
Yeah. So yeah, and as you practice it, it's a practice, right? It's like working out. If you go and do squats your first day, you're gonna be sore.
Yeah.
The next day, you're not gonna be able to do more than 100 pounds, but do it for 6 months, you could be like this guy. So anyway, it's a practice. You get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is the breath, where you're essentially activating your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is a transducer, which means it could emit and receive radio waves. It sounds crazy, but it's also crazy that I could open my phone and see someone in China in real time through wireless, satellites in the space, whatever. Anyway, the fact that your pineal gland is a transducer is a lot less crazy than some of that stuff, but for some reason people don't understand this. Anyway, that's the first step, because now you're attuning yourself to be able to put out and receive. And you do that for 5 of those breaths. And then I focus my attention on my heart. Just basically, literally, if you sit there right now and you bring your awareness to your right hand, you could feel that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Feel your right hand, just with your mind. Just bring your attention there. You're just bringing your energy there, right?
Mhm.
So the whole practice is about bringing your energy to different places. So
I was gonna say before you said it's like a ball of energy. Like
yeah, you feel your hand radiating when you do that. So first step is you focus on the center of your chest, and you just focus your attention there. Your energy's there. It's opening this part of you. I like to then, once I feel, I've been there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I think of something that I feel grateful for. Maybe it was like something simple, like laying in bed with my dogs and my wife, the night before, something that just makes me feel good. And then I sit with that for a few minutes, and then I just go from, each energy center. There you have 8 of them, starting at your root all the way to the one above your head, and I just go through each one. It's like first one, and then I go to the second one, and then I go to the first and second one at the same time, and then I do the third one, then I do the first, second, and third at the same time.
So the same way you focus on your heart,
Yep.
you focus on those.
Yep, and then I do the fourth one, and then first, second, third, fourth at the same time, and then I do the fifth one, first, second, third, fourth, fifth at the same time, sixth, and so on until the last. And it's like, if you can turn off your analytical mind, if your brain goes from, beta to alpha, where your brain waves get slower, and you can experience this, you'll eventually have, what you can call like a mystical experience, something that's like, whoa, that was cool. And then it encourages you to do it again. And now I'm at a point where like every morning I have an experience that's like pretty much insane. And I've been seeing that, I don't know how to describe what's happening or why, but since I started this practice, I've been able to connect with people at a deeper level. I've been able to focus more. I've been able to just kind of like receive the answers I need. And whether it's, I don't know what's scientifically happening, but for me, at least it's a great way to tame my mind, and have some discipline.
Understood. That's amazing. I'm gonna try it. I love that.
When did you start doing all of that?
Obviously, it sounds like it had a really positive effect on business as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I started my first company back when I was like 19. I used to throw concerts, and I did well, and then I created my own show.
Wasn't there like a lawsuit there or something?
Yeah. So I created the world's largest foam party. It was called Electric Flurry. You guys could look it up. It's still on YouTube. Like, it was actually pretty cool. But I ended up booking this arena at the Mullen Center at UMass Amherst, and we didn't sell enough tickets. I lost all my money, and I lost this investor's money. There was this kid. I forgive him now, but I'm still a bit resentful. This kid inherited, I won't drop any names, he inherited $50 million from his dad, and he wanted to be a famous DJ. So I was like, all right, cool. If you invest in the show, I'll put you on the main stage. Great. He invested 50 grand. We lost all the money, couldn't pay him back. And then his trust fund manager basically forced him to sue me. And he sued me for punitive damages and all this bullshit, basically for $250,000. And I was 23. I had literally $0 in my bank account, and I had to move back in with my mom. And it was tough because I grew up with a single mom, only child, and through building these shows, I had built this kind of, the way I viewed myself as like, oh, I was this successful young guy. But now I'm living in my mom's apartment with no money, so like my reality did not meet my standards, which was very painful. It was very painful. And I started I read a book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And it was a story of this kid who went to college as a professional athlete, or as a college athlete. And he met this gas station attendant who like was the peaceful warrior or whatever. And he learned all these lessons about life, about meditation, about running, about, treating yourself well, about taking things slow. And I started basically just like getting up earlier, like trying to not be depressed and just going for a run every morning. And right when I started that practice, a couple days later, the next opportunity popped into my life, which was, you guys remember Yik Yak? That.
I obviously know.
Yeah, you know that.
I remember some like old,
Yeah.
because when I was doing like drop shipping and stuff, I discovered some of your stuff, everyone's stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
And I had remembered that like you did Yik Yak, and then something with the stores happened, and you were driving across the country, and then
Yeah, I'll get into that story.
Yeah.
That one's a good one. Anyway, right when I started the personal development work, a company emailed me. They're called Yik Yak. A lot of people probably heard of it. They raised a $10 million Series A, and they're like, hey, we want to sponsor your shows. And I'm like, well, I don't have any shows now, but I was like, I could probably help these guys. So I just got on a call with them, and I just told them what I think they should do. Long story short, they were like, can you come do this for us, basically? And I was like, I don't know. I've never had a job before, and I'm really not interested in having a job. And anyway, it was a great thing that came to me, but it came after starting the personal work. And that was kind of like, that was my first step, was just going on runs in the morning. And then before I started Yik Yak, I got a book called The 8-Minute Meditation. I was like, what's up with meditation? I was just kind of interested in learning more. And my journey started kind of slow, and then in the last 5 years, it kind of got faster. I went to a bunch of events and retreats, and in the last like 2 years, it's like been going exponentially
Yeah.
faster after I started like plant medicine journeys and stuff like that. But yeah, that's how I got started.
I love it. I just love it because obviously knowing a lot of this like backstory, I feel like there's so many people that like they'll tout these things, but it like never actually help them. You know what I mean? It's like guys will like abuse caffeine and make a bunch of money, and then it's like, oh, I like you need to wake up every morning and like go for a walk. You know what I mean? It's like very fake, but I know that your routines like really did lead to a lot of your benefit and success and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and so with now, so what are you kind of working on? I mean, you Zendrop, you got a baby coming. Like, what does life look like now for you?
For me, my life is very. I live in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I live in like a really safe gated community. I have an office like 10 minutes from my house walking. And I walk through the golf course every morning. I have a gym in my home. I got the sauna, the cold plunge, the biohacking room. I'm sure you've seen the
Mm-hmm.
biocharger and like all that cool shit.
Yeah.
And I just try to live a routine life. I think that by building a routine, you can kind of, it's like if you want to build a building, if you don't have the foundation and the structure, it's very hard to build on top of it. So for me, having a routine, where I kind of know what I'm going to be eating, I know what time I'm getting up, I know when I'm working out. It's like it allows me to kind of focus on those next things. But a lot of people don't have any foundation. They just want those things and they go for it and they crumble down all the time. So I just have a very, routine life right now. And I want to be an example for my son. That's the main thing. So that's what keeps me, keeping me going.
I love it. And you got a couple months. Have you made any big changes since you were going to or found out you were going to be a father?
Um, Really, I mean, not really. My Madeline, my wife
Mm-hmm.
is so she's the opposite of me. She's like, the day after I proposed, she got her dress. Like I didn't know what I was wearing to the wedding until like a week before. She like when we found out we were having a baby, she like she wants to get the room done, the crib, all that shit. Like I wouldn't have gotten any of that until like a week before he was here. So she's pretty much got that stuff on lock. I haven't changed much really. I mean, I have taken time to like truly think about the fact that there's like cells splitting into a human being that came from me. And it's like pretty fucking wild to think about it. It's like one thing to just like say it,
Yeah.
but I've spent like 20 minutes on a walk just like how the hell is this possible, right? So, but I haven't really changed much, honestly.
I love it. Yeah, probably because it's really interesting. I think that the year that I was working for you, like I told you this on when we talked on the phone the other day, but I really think that I'm probably a lot better now that I'm like doing well and like making money, whatever, having had that experience because like I got to sort of absorb some of the secondhand maturity
Yeah.
of you kind of already being
How
over
how old were you when that was going on? You were
20 when I started.
So you were 28?
Well, I'm 32. I was probably 29.
29.
30.
Got you.
Yeah, I will say that, for anyone listening, the reason why I hired you was because when you took the personality test, you had a very low narcissism and a very high trustworthiness, which means as long as you're not an asshole or you're not stupid, like with those two qualities, you could kind of like from a narcissism perspective, you're not trying to take my seat, right? You're not trying to like, work behind the scenes to try to take over my shit.
Mm-hmm.
And from a trustworthiness perspective, I know you'll always be honest with me.
Yeah.
So, but most people don't have those qualities. Most people are like trying to figure out how do they like work this situation to make it the best for them. But you weren't like that. And in being the way you are, you're going to be very successful because you're genuine and you can connect with people at that level. So those were the two traits that were
Interesting.
super important to me.
Yeah, I had to take a personality test
We should have done that in our last round of hiring.
next time.
Yeah.
We gotta remember
That is one thing that I really took away from working for you too, is like not it seems like everybody that you had on the team then, and I'm sure now as it's grown a bunch, you said you had like what, like 50 employees now?
Yeah.
With Zendrop. One thing I really took away from that is like you weren't going out to try to get like you never really hired skill sets for the most part. It seemed like it almost seemed like you really um, were taking people that had that like trust and loyalty and like molding them into what you wanted more so than
Yeah, it depends on what phase you're in the company. Like in the
Yeah.
beginning of a company, it's really important to have that camaraderie and like, you know, you don't need to well, first of all, you can't afford to hire the experts, right? Like if you want to hire like the best software developer, you're spending 400 grand a year.
Mhm.
Back then, couldn't afford that. So it's about building people that have your values that you can trust, that you can build on, and figuring shit out. And then as the company grows, you know, the beginning of the company is like find product market fit and don't die, right? And it's like if you have people that you can trust, you gotta make it past that stage.
Mhm.
And then the second part is like kind of when you get to that 10 employee mark to like the 50 employee mark, where you can start taking in a few people based on skill sets, but it's really still building that culture. And then kind of where we got to now in like the 40 to 50 plus employee range is when we found product market fit. We have a brand that people know, like, and trust. Now we want to bring in the best people possible. So now we're just trying to hire the most badass people when it comes to any of the, you know, we're trying to build out more verticals now. So we're doing drop shipping. We're launching print on demand. I just announced that on my Instagram a couple days ago. We're looking to get into payment processing. So now when we hire, we're looking for like the best of the best people. I don't give a shit what they cost, like, because we're profitable. And it's like as you grow in revenue, the ratio of each person's like, if we're only doing $5 million in revenue, paying someone 500 grand a year, that's, you know, 10% of our revenue.
Yeah.
But when you're doing, you know what I'm saying? So you can afford to pay for better people. And then the output you get from those better people, the opportunity cost of not wasting time doing things the wrong way, and being able to bring experience from other companies to your company. Yeah, once you get to like that 40, 50 plus employee range, then it's all about hiring the best skill sets. But when you were around, it was about, you know, people that I trusted, that I can kind of mold into the seats we needed.
Yeah.
I wanna understand the gap, because Logan talks about when he worked for you, you had a bunch of cars, taking the Lamborghini to get detailed or something, stuff like that. So what was that time period between 23 and 29, and what happened? Obviously, Yik Yak happened and you
Yeah.
did the drop shipping stuff, but I want to understand the transitions and how your mind was working.
For sure. So I was with Yik Yak for about 2 years.
So it's like
Yeah.
you're like 25.
I was like 24, 25. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a job. Like I got paid a salary. I had some stock option in the company,
Yeah.
but it was super fun because I got to basically travel around the world. I lived in Australia for 2 months, New Zealand for 2 months, England, Ireland.
And is that what you wanted out of this, like the freedom aspect, or did you always want your own thing?
I always wanted my own thing, but like it kind of felt like my own thing at Yik Yak because I was like running all that stuff.
You know what Yik Yak is, right?
Yeah,
Nick?
it was a social media app for like college campuses,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It was like Twitter, but local and anonymous.
Yeah.
So like my objective was to go to universities and get 1,000 downloads, no matter how I had to do it. Long story short, we ended up like boiling down the formula and realized that the cheapest way to get a download on a campus was to give people a pair of Yik Yak socks in order to download the app. So like we would just fly to these universities all around the world with huge bags of socks and just like, anyway, it was really fun, amazing experience. You know, I got to grow a lot. Like my people skills got much more comfortable because I was talking to like hundreds of kids. We were throwing parties. It was a lot of fun. But while I was at Yik Yak, I was living at spring break at Lake Havasu, which was fucking wild. My friend was in China and he was like, he found this product and he's like, this product could go super viral. He's like, let me call Jared and get his opinion on the product. So he calls me. He's like, dude, I got to send you one of these products.
And why did he call you? Because obviously there's some history there.
Because I was, I had built my concert company and I'm now like running the marketing for Yik Yak. So he just understood that I was a pretty good marketer.
Got it.
And he sent me one of these products in the mail. like I got it like 2 weeks later, and it was this big heavy box, and I'm living at Lake Havasu, like at which is like the West Coast party, like spring break party place. Basically,
Okay.
everyone from the West Coast goes there. I'm living at college spring break. I get this box in the mail. I open it up, and it's a hoverboard. But it was before anyone had ever seen hoverboard, so I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? Like, no way this is gonna work, right? I plug it in, and I get on it, and I'm like, ooh, like trying to catch my balance. I'm like, whoa. And like I had like 6 people in my room, and they're all like, what the fuck? Like, what is that thing? And I'm like zooming it around the room, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how this physically should not work. And then I start riding it around like Lake Havasu, like just the sidewalks, and drunk kids from all over the place are like, yeah, like what is that? Running over to me. Like,
Yeah.
how much was that? Where'd you get it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. My friend just sent it to me. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta start selling these things. Like everyone is asking me where to get one. So I was at spring break for about a month.
Mhm.
I started waking up and going to Starbucks at 7 and building a Shopify store.
Yeah.
And I found a supplier that can drop ship the products to my end customer. And basically printed out business cards and started riding this thing around everywhere. And just anyone asked me, hey, get it right here, get it right here. I started selling like 2 or 3 of these things a week.
So you think you were the first one selling
I was like
those in this country?
the second one.
Okay.
There was like one other brand that was before me.
Before you continue, it's super interesting to me to hear how organic it happened, because I always feel like the things that naturally just become bigger, like when we're first getting started, like for me it was Instagram theme pages, but I didn't start the whole I didn't decide I want to do online business, say Instagram theme pages. I was like, I'm gonna drop ship, and I stuck in that mindset for 9 months, and it didn't work for me, right? Like I just wasn't getting it, but I organically kind of got into theme pages, and it happened, and this opportunity almost fell in your lap. You weren't looking for to drop ship, you weren't looking for the next product, you weren't on any of these websites like, oh, this is the hot product. You're just there, and you're like, oh, this might be a good money making opportunity. And it's super interesting to me because I feel like a lot of people have a similar story like that where it just comes to you.
Again, the universe is filled with unlimited possibilities of outcomes. Like, for example, like a bird can fly into the window right over there, and like, it could break the window, and then like, some security guard could go run and like knock over a camera, and there's unlimited possibilities. So for you to have any expectation of how things are going to unfold, like who do you think you are?
For sure.
Right? It's like it's impossible. If there's unlimited possibilities. Anything over infinity is infinity.
Yeah.
Or zero. Whatever it is, it's impossible. I forget the numbers. But anyway, this shit unfolded basically. Started, passing out these business cards, and I was selling like 2 or 3 hoverboards per week. And I was making like $1,000 on each one, which was more money than I was making at my salary at Yik Yak.
Mhm.
So I left my job. I had a business partner at the time, Jack McCall. He was like a professional snowboarder, and he posted it on his social media, and a bunch of people started buying it. And he introduced me to all these influencers in LA, like Nash Greer and Hayes Greer, and like all these other kids with like 5-10 million followers. And we basically blew up the hoverboard scene. We didn't have a patent on the product, so it was like a short-lived dream. We couldn't keep going.
Yeah.
It did lead me to a conversation with Mark Cuban, which was cool because he was buying the patent on hoverboards, and we had built a brand that was very recognizable. So he wanted to get on a call with us, and I did speak to him. And kind of a funny story, it was October, so we're in Q4, like going into the hottest time of the year, and we're selling a shitload of hoverboards. And Mark Cuban calls me, and we get on a call for like 15 minutes. He's like, "Hey man, like I love the brand you've built. I'm interested in working with you. But I'm not buying the patent until next year, and my terms are that we can work together if you stop selling your cheap Chinese knockoff hoverboards."
Right now.
Yeah, like right now.
Which is Q4.
Which was like, yeah, it was like going
Prime
into
time.
like, yeah, like I could have made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, like, what do I want to do? Like, I really want to make money, but like, when else am I going to get a chance to work with Mark Cuban? And I love Mark Cuban. I was like a huge fan of Mark Cuban. So made the very difficult decision to take the store down, stop selling them, and then he never ended up getting the patent on the product. So it was just a waste of time. But
How many millions of dollars do you think you missed out on?
several millions. But it was okay. So I ended up going out to China I wanted to find what's the next viral product. Like, this is crazy. And I went out there and I found those inflatable loungers. You know, the ones you like wave through the air and they like fit in a little bag and you can lay on them. Very viral product. And long story short, I started importing them. I was selling to major retailers. I was on Amazon, on Shopify. We were at music festivals. We had teams all over the country selling these things. And it was great, but we kept running into like limitations based on inventory. So like we couldn't sell more than what we had. And every time we ran out, we had to send hundreds of thousands of dollars to China, wait for the product to get in, hope that everything was fine. And then basically one day we were at a trade show in Dallas and we were selling this product to like all these big retailers. And I was talking to people for 3 days straight and I was exhausted. And I was like, I got to fly back the next morning at 7 a.m. and I'm in bed and it's like midnight. And I get a ding on my phone and it was an email and it said, how to sell products without ever seeing or touching them. And I was like, damn, that sounds really interesting. But I'm like, fuck, I'm tired. I'm like, it's like, I got to get to sleep. I got to be up at like 5 tomorrow, 4 or 5. And I'm like, whatever, let me just click the email. And it was the best thing I've ever done. I clicked that email. I watched a 1-hour webinar on what drop shipping was, on how you can go find products on AliExpress, and you could build a store. And I was like, holy shit.
Do you know who it was from?
It's from a guy named John Mack.
Okay.
I still talk to him now, like we're friends. But ended up like blowing my mind. I was like, no way, this is too crazy. So I got to the airport the next day at 4 o'clock in the morning. I built my first drop shipping store. And that was the store that scaled from zero to 2 million in 60 days. But I did. So, do you want me to roll with the story?
Yeah, let's keep going.
It's pretty interesting.
I've heard it briefly before on some of
Yeah.
the other things you talked about, but I would love to hear it again.
So, I'm going to talk about how I physically manifested a Lamborghini. I know when it happened. At the time, I was just getting by. Like, I had these brands, but like I was living in LA. I had a warehouse rent. Like, you know, I had a business partner. And like at the end of the day, I wasn't really making much money. I had like a couple $1,000s in my bank account. It was like floating me by. And so we were living in LA, my wife and I. She wasn't my wife at the time, but we're like, let's move to Florida. It'll be easier. It's cheaper. And we're kind of sick of LA. And I was like, basically, you know, I had to go drive for 5 days. But before my drive, my friend Brett Lockett, he was a former NFL player. I always looked up to him. He was a great guy. He's like, I'm going to this Tony Robbins event. You should come. I was like, I don't know anything about Tony Robbins, but sure, why not? It's like 3 days long. And I learned a lot at that event. I highly recommend that to young entrepreneurs. But at the event, we did this meditation essentially where you visualize yourself as somebody in your life that really loves and cares about you genuinely. And I imagined myself as my aunt because she always wants the best for me. And then you're basically this person and you're walking into your future life. You're looking in the driveway, you're admiring your future car, you're walking up into the house, you're looking at the photos on the wall, you're admiring the family, you're admiring the home, and then you walk upstairs and you walk into the bathroom and you look in the mirror and the whole time it was you. And it was like a really powerful exercise because we have trouble really loving ourselves because we resent a lot of the things we do. But if you imagine yourself as someone else, you could actually have those feelings toward yourself. Long story short, I get in my car to drive from LA to Florida. And my drop shipping store, you know, it did like $500 in sales that day, which was like kind of good for me. I mean, like $200.
This is just to clarify, like that was, you'd set it up the night before, right?
I had set it up like 3 days before, and it was like just kind of getting started. It was like doing $500 a day.
And then you
Trade show
decided
to the drive. There's 3 days.
Yeah,
in
basically.
between.
got it.
Yeah.
And this is when it blew up.
So yeah, so the store was doing like $500 a day for like 3 or 4 days in a row, and I was pretty stoked about it because I was like,
Brand new store.
yeah, I'm like making like $200 a day doing nothing essentially. Anyway, I had that meditation. I learned a lot about energy. I get in the car. I feel like a new version of myself because I'm like all hyped up. And first day on the drive, I like had this idea. I'm like, what if we double our ad sets and like, you know, I don't remember what the idea was, but I called the guy who was running my Facebook ads and I'm like, let's try this. And he's like, all right, first day on the drive, my store does $2,000 in sales. I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. I made like, you know, close to $1,000 in profit today. It was like almost the most money I've ever made. And then next day, store does $7,000 in sales. And I'm with Madeline. I'm like, yo, do you see this shit? $7,000 doing nothing. I'm like, this is impossible. Like, don't tell anyone about this. I'm like, made like $3,500. I'm like, just don't say anything. And third day, we do like, I think it was like 15,000. And I'm like, oh, and the whole drive, I'm getting these downloads of like what to do. And I'm like, just like, oh shit, like that makes sense. Let me call this guy. Let me do that. And I'm like, just totally clear. I'm driving, my brain is kind of just like,
You're just thinking. You're not distracted.
just thinking with this new energy. And I think
Do you think that's a form of meditation?
for sure, for sure. Long drives, I think, are amazing. Anyway, 15 grand that day, like 7,000 in profit. And I'm like, thank you, God. I know that's too good to be true. So like, whatever. Third day, I did 35 grand in sales. And I profit almost $20,000. And I'm telling Madeline, like, we do not tell a soul about this. Like, this is between us. And then the last day of the drive, I broke 50,000 in sales with like 25,000 in profit. And now I've like doubled, way more than doubled my bank account on that drive. Anyway, I'm like, there's no way this could continue. This is too good to be true. I must have caught a glitch on Facebook. Like, because what happened was that I massively outperformed what I thought was possible. In other people's lives, 50 grand a day is normal. For me, that was like 1,000 times more than I thought was normal. So it's for me, I was like, this is not possible. Like, it's too good to be true. But it continued onwards for months. And then about 60 days later, I had to drop off Madeline to like do someone's hair. She was a hairstylist, so she was doing someone's hair at a wedding. And I was like, I can go drive home, or I could just wait for her for like an hour. I'm like, let me just like flick through cars.com. I got all this cash now. And I like found this dealership like 5 minutes away that had all these exotics. And I went there and I was like, wow, these are cool. And then I ended up buying this gray Lamborghini like on the spot in cash. I like negotiated with them and I like bought it that day. And then 2 weeks later, I was driving it and it hit me. That was the exact same car that I had in the meditation at the Tony Robbins event when I was visualizing my driveway. And I was like, holy shit, like that went from a thought with emotion behind it to now it's in my life.
And like,
In a series of almost impossible events that led to it. And that's when I realized like there's a lot more that what we can do than what we think we can do. And that was like my first time I like really manifested something.
how else did your life change during that time? Because it almost seems it's not a 0 to 100, right? But it seems like that, right? In regards to you were feeling really good about $500 days,
Yeah.
even after the whole hoverboard was successful.
Yeah.
So how else did your life change besides the Lamborghini and stuff like that? Did you change your lifestyle in any other manner besides moving to Florida?
Yeah. I ended up getting a condo in Singer Island on the beach, which was really cool, like beautiful. I was really into personal development at that point because like
Okay.
my life changed so much, and I decided I wanted to double down and like create more stores and my lifestyle changed. Not proportionally to how much money I had made though. Like I wasn't like spending as much as I was making, not even close. But I really just started doubling down on like the meditations, on getting up for the sunrise, bring my coffee down to the beach, and just learning about I was like I rode a high for like months. I ended up going back out to China and I was traveling Asia by myself and I was having a blast. And like, but I got home and I still had this like I felt proud and like confident, but I still had this like emptiness.
Yeah.
I'm like, how? Like I'm doing all this shit. I'm traveling. I got the cars. Like I'm working out. I'm healthy. A good relationship. What more is there? Like, why do I still have this kind of emptiness? I kept filling it with more money. Launching the course, launching the mentorship program, launching the masterminds, the business. I had the notoriety of speaking on stages, and that's kind of when I realized like, it's about the simple shit. It's about being grateful each day. It's about meditating, and as I've been working on my inner world, my outer world's been getting better and better. So that was the lesson I learned. It was like it all started with the inner world at the Tony Robbins event, which had a massive immediate effect on my life in an almost impossible way. And then since then I've been working on the inner world, and kind of my outer world's been shaping around it.
And you basically further just doubled down on the inner world with all the meditation and the continued just like habits and
Yeah,
whatnot.
and I really got, I think I started doing these plant medicine journeys recently, which were like,
Like, what is that? Like mushrooms, ayahuasca? What does that look like?
so I go to a place that they have this medicine that they don't disclose to you what it is. Apparently, it's like a very like highly protected medicine. It was referred to me by a very high level friend I have, and it's like all CEOs and like leaders, and it costs like 40 grand to go do it, uh, and it's a combination of different compounds, I think. So I don't know what it is. I have done quite a bit of psilocybin. I've microdosed a lot. I haven't done ayahuasca yet, but you go to this place and you take this medicine, and you're basically like laying down. You have a voice recorder on you, and like you just get total clarity on life. And then you record your whole kind of session. The whole thing takes 6 hours, but it feels like 10 minutes. It's amazing. And then afterwards, you take your voice recording and you transcribe it. So you type it all out. It's like I had like 20 to 40 pages of typing. And then you go through it with a coach and you figure out kind of like the profound nuggets from it. But for me, I expected to have these like crazy epiphanies, but all the epiphanies I had were actually just deeper understandings of the basic shit. Like letting go, like not being so attached to outcomes, like family, like loving people around you, like the basic shit that gets clouded with all the other stuff. And I just understood that stuff deeper. And that's been, people are looking for these crazy secrets. And it's like, you have everything you need in front of you. Like, be a good person, like, be nice to other people, be compassionate, give good vibes. You get good vibes back. Like, it's pretty simple. And that the plant medicine allowed me to like realize that that's really what fills the void. Is just like the basic shit, letting go of like expecting things to happen certain ways, which because nothing ever happens the way you expect it to. And those were kind of the main takeaways of it.
That's awesome. I think that like it's tough. It is like it's very simple and like your like habits, routine, letting go, like being grateful, like all these things they are very simple, but I think also they can't like they're very simple but they're not easy, right? And I think too like a lot of young guys that do have ambition, maybe it just gets kind of lost in the weeds. You kind of get stressed, you get things hit you, but you having actually done that and navigated those things, like what would you say to, maybe a young guy, because that's primarily what our audience is, I would assume. A young guy who does want to get through like that phase one and be able to whip their gray Huracan and do these things, but like how do they make sure they are able to do all those things?
Yeah, I think that what it all boils down to is your energy, your frequency, your vibration. And that didn't mean anything to me for a long time. Like now it finally does. Like the way you vibrate, the vibe you give off creates your whole life. Like you ever meet someone and you're like, I just love that guy.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
he's the man. And typically those people tend to also be very successful, right? Because they're attracting a lot of good things into their lives. And then, obviously you've met someone who looks like they've just been like fucking jerking off and like scrolling on fucking YouTube too long, and like they're just like pessimistic about shit, and like but in their brain they're like, fuck, I wish I had that fucking Lamborghini, like, oh, maybe one day like go jerk off again, like, right? And they have a very low vibration.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be that guy, right? You want to be the other guy, the guy who gives off the good vibration. And the only way to do that really is through habits. It's through rituals. I think social media is inevitable. You're going to have it. You're going to be on it. It's part of life at this point. But be responsible with it. Like, don't wake up and start scrolling first thing in the morning. Replace that with meditation first thing in the morning. Go on a long walk and visualize. I think, a very key piece of information is understanding the power of discipline and a vision. That's really what creates your outcome, right? Discipline is extremely important because it creates your self-confidence. So like understanding the negative effects of not sticking to your disciplines, understanding that is actually more detrimental than you may realize is something that's key. So when you have discipline, you're keeping promises to yourself, your subconscious mind is like, yo, you did this for you. Like, you feel worthy. And then your subconscious is what directs you. So, and your decisions are what influence your subconscious. So knowing that if you stick to your disciplines of the habits that you put together, you're going to feel worthy and you're going to be guided towards gaining those things. That's number one. Number two is understanding that the universe is full of unlimited possibilities. So being attached to expectations of how you think things are going to happen is a stupid way to think about life. It's like once you put in the work, you go on the walk, you feel the emotions of who you want to be, you see your vision, you feel like you get the goosebumps, you feel so good. You've done the work. Now let the universe do the rest, right? There's no way to control how it happens. So that's number two, is understanding that there's unlimited possibilities. So for you to think that you could expect things to happen a certain way is arrogant and ignorant. So letting go of that. And number three is having a vision, right? And this is where it gets a little tricky, right? Because a lot of the guys who are just like, jerking off, scrolling on their phone, they're like, yeah, okay, here's my vision. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. You can't have your vision if you're in a low energy state. So get yourself in a high energy state. Eat clean for a week, run every morning, feel powerful, listen to good music, and then think about what's my vision. Where do I want to be? What's my purpose? And figure out what that is, write it down, lock it in, and keep that as your thing that you feel every single day. So if you have the discipline plus the vision, which you visualize on a daily basis, and you remember to let go regularly because things are not going to happen how you expect them to because it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the recipe for the guy that wants to kind of get through phase one. It's the discipline, the vision, and the letting go.
Two major takeaways like from that is it's super cliche and but mindset is literally kind of the main thing. It's pretty much the only thing that matters, right? Like discipline and visualization all come from mindset, right? And then the other takeaway that I had, when we were driving here, I was just kind of thinking, and right now I have this rental car. It's not my car. I hate it. It's an Audi A4. Don't like driving it. My car's an Audi right now, RS5. Love that car. It's fun to drive. And, but I still had this thought that, and this is more recently, I had this thought yesterday, had this thought today, that everything is just how it's supposed to be, and I feel really good, and I feel like I'm at the place I should be, and there's nothing. Yeah, I want a Lamborghini. I want a Porsche GT2 RS. That's actually, I'm going to buy that this year, 100%, right? But I'm trying to put it into words, but it's more like I don't absolutely need it. I'm not gonna, my day's not going to suck because of it.
Yeah.
Everything, I'm enjoying my life. Me 5 years ago would be very grateful for where I am right now. So I think like the gratefulness aspect or the high vibrational piece of that is just kind of enjoying, and you're enlightened, or you probably have a better word for it.
You're
right?
never gonna get to where you're trying to go because you're always gonna want to go further.
Yeah, exactly.
So life is the journey. The whole life is the journey.
And the key is to just enjoy the day to day and those moments. So even though I hated the car that I was driving, I still felt a lot of joy because I'm with the boys. We're going here to film a great podcast with you. It's just fun in general, and nothing's really bad.
Yeah, for sure. And if you feel certain ways about the car, right, you may be like, oh shit, I'm way cooler than this. Like people are gonna judge me subconsciously. Then maybe it's the universe teaching you a lesson.
Sure.
It's like maybe you need to be humbled today, and you're like, all right, that makes sense. I'm gonna feel humbled today.
Got it.
Right? It's like just be in the present moment and don't resist.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, it's all about letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And what you said is like I think a lot of people get this, but you're going to get to phase one, right? You get the cars, all that stuff. Then you're going to want something else. Then you're going to want something else. And it's never going to end.
On the next car, and then the next house.
You think Jeff Bezos still doesn't want more shit? Of course he does. Imagine Jeff Bezos was like miserable the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you're never going to get to the end. There is no end of the journey. It's just like life is a symphony, right? It's like there's ups and downs, there's highs, there's lows. But then at the end of it, you look back and it was like a beautiful symphony.
I love this conversation so far because obviously I didn't know you before this, but the spiritual aspect of what you've done, like entrepreneurship, I've said it before, is it's like a spiritual growth journey, like self-improvement itself. And to be an entrepreneur, start your businesses, you basically have to work on the inner, like you were saying. So it's almost confirming to me to almost double down. That's another takeaway I had, is just like double down. I've done a lot of this stuff. You know, we were talking about the breath work and stuff like that, but I've never gone deep enough, or maybe I got to a certain point, I got comfortable. I'm like, I'm in Miami now. I'm, cool. Like, got the car. Like, I don't need to do any of that stuff. But the stuff that got you there will continue to get you to the next level. And that's a huge takeaway that I took from, what you were saying, is you didn't stop. You just kept going and going and going, and even building on the inner work and whatnot, even more than when you started.
Yeah. And it's good to get those kind of confirmations, right? Because there's you hear all this different shit out there.
Yeah.
Some people are like, Andrew Tate. He's like, yeah, I wake up, I get on my phone, first thing, it's my portal to the outer world. And oh, well, maybe I don't need to meditate. Andrew Tate doesn't, right? And it's like, well, that's one influence. And then there's there's all these different influences around you. But I will say that I've gotten to spend time with a lot of very high level people. And they're all on their spiritual game. They're all on their they all have the discipline. Discipline is one thing that every person I know at a high level has. They keep promises to themselves.
Yeah.
You can look at anyone successful. Like Kobe Bryant was a great example.
Yeah.
That man was up 4 a.m, 3:30 in the morning, already worked out before. You know how many times he probably woke up and he was like, man, I'm tired today. But it's that's not what my true self wants.
Yeah.
It's how many times have you, it's been a Sunday night and you're thinking about your week and you're like, I'm motivated for this week. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to work out. And then that morning comes around and you're like, fuck, why did I say I was going to do that? And it's well, that's just your your vibrational animalistic body in the moment trying to convince you not to do what you know is good for you. So it's remember what your high vibrational self wanted and keep that. You can do that no matter what. Unless you're physically injured. Also, your mind gets really tricky. For me, waking up early is hard. And when it's several days in a row for me, my mind gets really creative. It's first it's oh, you're tired, you're exhausted. Then it'll start playing. Next day it'll be you're going to get sick unless you go back to sleep. I'm that sounds so stupid. And I'll get up anyway. And then every time I break past it though, I'm proud of myself. And I just feel my confidence building in my conversations, in my interactions. I think that's
because you're keeping those promises to yourself.
Exactly.
There's our friend, and Logan, obviously you mentioned him, I think, no, not in the pod, but Lobo, who we're going to try to get on the pod. But one thing that he says or has said is, every time I train, I regret all the times I didn't. And that just reminds me of I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to do it. And then you get yourself. But if you get up and you just do it, you're going to regret all the times that you never did.
And there are some tools that I'll share that have been very helpful for me in keeping my discipline and my habits. And I will say I'm far from perfect, right? But I do keep track of what's not perfect. So I'll tell you what I do. It's kind of a two-part thing. Number one is a Sunday planning session. It's 2 hours on Sunday morning where the first hour is reflecting on the previous week. So you're going through every day. What did I do Monday? What my conversation? You're just writing as many things as you could remember. You're looking at your calendar. You're looking at your texts, and you're writing out everything you did the previous week. I have one of those pens that are 4 colors. It's a blue, a red, green, and a black. And if I did something impulsive or something that I didn't feel good about, I'll write it in red. If I did something I'm proud of, sticking to a discipline, a routine, meditation workout, I'll write it in green. And I write out my whole previous week. So that way I'm aware of my impulsive behaviors, which will let me catch them earlier on the upcoming week. And I'm also celebrating my wins. And also through the process, I'm remembering how many times have you had a great conversation and you're like, oh, I'm going to do all these things. And then life gets in the way and then you forget to do half of those things. Well, you go through your week, you kind of writing down those to-dos, etc.
It's a cleanup.
It's a cleanup of last week. And then the second part of the Sunday planning, and this is half of the thing I'm going to share. Second part is planning your week ahead, where you're, instead of just putting on your calendar, I'm going to work out this time, I'm going to meditate this time, I'm going to, you're being very specific. Monday morning, lower body strength. Monday afternoon, 45-minute walk. And you're putting all your personal stuff in your calendar first, and then you're putting the work stuff in. And by the end of it, you know exactly what you're doing every single day. That way there's less room for internal debate when it comes up.
It's very
already
intentional.
decided. Yeah. You're in a high energy state. Sunday morning, you're feeling good, you're feeling peaceful. Your high vibrational self created your week. Now, when a debate comes up, you're like, well, it's already in the calendar. I can't not do it. Right? So that's part one. Part two is every day at around 7 p.m., maybe 8 p.m., when I'm about to kind of like wind down for the day, I do a mini version of this where I like basically reflect on the whole day. So I'll write like every detail I could remember of the day. So I woke up at this time, I brushed my teeth, I went to the bathroom, I drank water, I meditated, I stretched, I went on a walk, I got this call, I had this. And what I'm doing is I'm sharpening my memory because I'm like recalling all those things. I'm training the neural pathways which create my memory. And I'm also marking in red, oh, I drank another one of those feel-free shots. I only wanted to do one, right? Simple. And right, and like in the moment, your brain's like, it's tricky. You'll feel real good, and it's like, well, shit, I didn't want to do that. So I'm marking those in red, and the good things I'm marking in green, and I give my day a rating between like an F and an A plus, and it's just like it's the same thing. It's like I swept up those conversations. I wrote my to-dos out from that, and I feel like I completed the day.
Yeah.
And those two habits will give you the ability to stick to your other habits and disciplines much better.
It's really interesting because, I am a disciplined person, like by most accounts, right? But even just hearing that, like I will a lot of times like set too much, you know what I mean? And set up like,
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not disciplined, like I'm always working or always working out or like doing these positive things that I think are beneficial to me, but I'll like over schedule them, and then that's how the kind of train gets stopped, right? It's just like it becomes too
What
much.
do you mean by that? Like schedule what?
It becomes negative subconsciously because I don't do all of it, and I'm breaking those things because the stuff that I'm
You're talking about anything, not just work, not just like
like that's just in general. Hearing you say all these things, like that's a negative thing for me, is like, yeah, I'll work out, but I want to work out or tell myself I'm going to work out for 3 hours a day and do all this shit. And then it's just like unsustainable. And then can see how it's just interesting to think about as you were talking about these things.
That's a very good, because if I need a moment of clarity, I'll journal.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Write it out.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a mini journal every day.
Yeah.
And you're just continuously getting that clarity. And then it becomes hard not to solve problems.
Yeah. I also do journal in the morning, and I'll read my last day's recap and rating first before I do my journal. So I bring back the energy of the night before. I'm like, all right, these were my impulsive behaviors. And I'm like, well, who do I want to be today? Right? And this is like after I've meditated and before I've checked my phone.
How long have you done this for?
This particular habit's been probably about a year.
Got it.
About a year, yeah. And it's like most people wake up and they remind themselves of their problems, like, shit, like I have this financial problem, or I have this job I don't like, or I have to go break up with my girlfriend or whatever. And they live the same life the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's like, before you do that, remember where you're going, right? So like in my journal, I'm like, today I'm gonna be more compassionate. I'm gonna text my grandma. I'm going to be, someone that so and so can look up to. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna feel these emotions. I'm gonna be loving to my family. I'm gonna spend, and I remind myself of the person I need to be. And even just doing that and feeling that, it's like your subconscious is now like going in that direction. But most people live completely reckless fucking lives, dude. Yeah. Like they wake up and they're just like in whatever direction life throws them with all the emotions from the day before. And they wonder why they're not going forward. Yeah. They got it totally backwards. This stuff I'm talking about is inner work. It's the work. The other problem is most people don't have the framework for the work. So they're like, yeah, I want to work on my inner world, but what do I do? So like these are things that I have personally developed through reading, through going to events. Some of this stuff was borrowed from other people. Most of this is my own original kind of things that I've, put together for myself. But I'm happy to share this framework because most people don't even know where to start.
And I had an interesting question, but I kind of lost the train of thought.
Yeah, it's
But
just super interesting to me. Like, it's stuff that I have done before and have experience with it, but it's funny too. Like, a lot of this stuff I did before I was doing as well as I am now, and then you start doing well, and then you get fucking swept up in just like all the bullshit, and it's like, you think that you almost think you're above it to
Yeah.
some extent. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I got all this shit to do now, but you don't get as near as much done when you aren't feeling very good.
what's interesting is by removing things from the schedule, I actually think you get more done. And then by like writing them down each day, you bring awareness to what needs to get done and what doesn't need to get done, and like you prioritize, and then things just happen. It's a very good problem solving framework. So how much of all this inner work would you attribute your business success to?
100%. Like, I wouldn't have any business success if it wasn't for the inner work.
Wow.
100%. I mean, I believe, and I'm proving to myself, and therefore proving to others, that your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world.
Yeah.
If you have inner turmoil, if you're stressed, if you're a bad person, like if you're doing things that are not, that you don't feel good about, like you're stealing from someone, that's the worst. Like, I think that's like living in hell, right? You're like, you hate yourself. You're not going to succeed. You're not going to make money, and making money won't solve that. It's a direct reflection, in my opinion.
So I want to bring it back a little bit because we talked about the drop shipping stuff. We talked about the Zendrop. We talked about how things got started. One thing we haven't touched on is like the consulting, the coaching business and stuff. And I'm super curious about that because that's what we do. That's what I've been involved in that for 3
You wanna
years.
switch up gears a bit?
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. But I've been involved in that for like 3-ish, years, growing, personal brands, their coaching programs and stuff on Instagram.
Yep.
Now we're growing our own. And it's interesting to start to see the product end of it. And we're talking a little bit about that. But how did it come to be on your end? What did the operation look like? You mentioned you had like 20, 25 sales guys, which means it's a big operation.
Yep.
For anyone listening,
So first thing I did was, I realized that people wanted my product.
and how, like, did you have the personal brand before?
No.
So you didn't have anything. You weren't like public.
No, I simultaneously like hired a publicist and like
Okay.
got these articles and like I wanted to be like my ego needed to be fed, that kind of stuff. I was going through that still.
I was going through that still. It's funny.
Yeah, it's part of the journey. Like
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it. It's just
it's just funny to hear it like that.
But the first thing I did was I found that people wanted my product and started kind of small, and then I poached the guy who ran the marketing for Sam Ovens.
Okay.
SamOvensConsulting.com. He was like,
I think he just sold this thing. Yeah.
he did. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention, but I found the guy that like built all of his funnels, his emails. Like, if you're trying to do something, you find someone that did it way better and either copy them, learn from them, or steal their people.
Yeah.
Like, if you could. And like, I had a big vision, and like, I have a way of like getting people motivated to do things because I'm good at sharing my vision. So I was able to share my vision with this guy and like basically bring him on as a profit share partner. And he basically took what I had and like made it on steroids, essentially.
Okay.
Like revamped all my email flows, my ads, like told me what to film. And yeah, basically, I figured out what does it all boil down to? From a coaching business, it boils down to what does it cost to get a qualified lead on the phone or talking to you, wherever you talk, and then how much money are you bringing in on average per call or whatever messaging way that you have. And that was the formula. And it was like everything else is operating costs. So we ran ads. Whatever ads got the cheapest cost per click, which translated to cost per application, which translated to cost per lead if they pass the application. How do we get that number as low as possible? And then how do we get our sales team as good as possible so the dollar per call is as high as possible? And when we first started, we were getting like $80 per qualified phone call, and we were getting like $500 per call. So like it cost us 80 and we got 500 back. So we scaled the shit out of it. And then the lead cost went up, right? Every time you scale, your lead cost goes up. So, and then the business gets more complex. There's more overhead. So, yeah, that was basically, you got to understand your numbers, and you have to improve.
How much were you inside that business? In terms of like, were you managing the sales team? Were you overseeing a lot of those processes?
No, I had someone managing the sales team.
Got it.
But, even like now in Zendrop, like I'm not an operator. I'm not a good operator. Like I take a long time to answer emails. I'm not like effective with like, I don't know how to use our
I learned from the best.
we use Notion. I don't know how to use Notion. Like Slack, I'm horrible at. Like I've probably like 70,000 unread things, like any things. But I have a great, like everyone under me they're managing their teams, and I have great communication with those people and
Yeah.
great emotional relationships with those people. So I understand how they feel, and I'm confident that they're much better at what they're doing than what I'm doing. So I'm personally not a good operator. That doesn't mean that anyone listening should try to not be an operator. Maybe you're a strong operator. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm a visionary. And I'm an effective communicator when it comes to like conversations with people. I'm not effective with managing my inbox. I'm not very organized. Granted, I could get better at it, but I'm just, I focus on my strengths, and I don't focus on trying to improve my weaknesses so much. I just double down on my strengths, accept my weaknesses, maybe improve them if I need to. But yeah, I was not very much in the operations of the coaching business. I was filming content. I was doing, once a week we did a group coaching call. We had a mastermind every quarter. I was just kind of like the guy doing that stuff.
Got it. Face.
It was a business though.
Yeah,
right?
it was a real business.
Build the business.
So
On the business.
let me ask you this: if you're us, right? This is more of a personal advice question. If you're me and Logan, and you had just kind of removed yourself from fulfillment, you're there. You got call week now, right? We took the advice you gave us, and we implemented a lot of those things.
Good.
And you're us. You're almost at the 100K a month mark with this new business, right? What's your next step? We're getting our leads organically. Our fulfillment is taken care of. We have all day to be on video and market. What
Yeah.
do you do?
So, two things. If you guys are, well, three things really. I would be, number one is I would take a good hard look at the product and the marketplace and see what can you do that differentiates you from others. Like, what can you do to disrupt it? What would Elon Musk do? Like, don't think, oh, I'm not Elon Musk. He's coming out with a new battery for Tesla. He's gonna blow all the other fucking electric car companies out of the water. How do you get way ahead of the competition? And don't think small, even if it's hard. Do a brainstorm session every quarter and like think about how can you change that, right? Number two is double down on the organic stuff, which is what you're doing. Like really focus
That's what
on
we're
getting
really good at.
collaborations and keep blowing up on social. Double down on what's working. And then number three, I'd probably introduce paid traffic because paid traffic is throttle. It's like, if I put in 10, I make 20. So let me put in 10,000, make 20,000. Yeah. And you can never, like, I only did paid traffic. I never did any organic traffic. And I was able to, if you said, all right, we got 18 salespeople on today, and they could each take 10 calls, we need 180 calls booked. All right, I know exactly how to do that with paid traffic.
You crank it up.
Crank it down. And then I have my email list where, oh shit, we need 60 more calls today. Shoot out a blast to 20,000 people, right? Like, and the paid traffic got the list, and I had someone really good managing that. So, yeah, I would say number one is the product and offering. Separate yourself. Like, figure out how can you be the Elon Musk of your space.
Like, triple down now. Like, I feel like we doubled down, now we have to, like, triple down.
Yeah, maybe it's a software you build. Maybe it's I don't know your space.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate conversation.
For sure.
But think that way, right? You guys are smart. Double down on what you're currently doing with the organic traffic and introduce paid traffic. That's what I would do.
Super cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think it's hearing all of the sort of like spiritual and mindset stuff, and then also hearing the corollaries with how you talk about business. Like, I feel like the denominator there that you've mentioned for both is like emotions, and like really, like, I feel like that's maybe what makes you such an effective marketer and or entrepreneur, is the emotional like awareness almost, and being able to tap into that. Is that something you like expressively think about, or you just think comes natural?
I think emotional intelligence is extremely important. I do have one more habit that I do that I didn't share yet that is like kind of a way to tune in my emotions. Um, I do a morning walk, and on my morning walk, I'm focused on uh, kind of a few different emotional states. Like it's about a 30-minute walk, and it's broken up into 5 parts. And the first part is like I'm opening my heart. I'm like feeling grateful. I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling thankful for everything I have. The second part is I am becoming aware that I'm a spiritual being. I'm just like imagining how like the universe is so large and there's more to it than what I could see. The third part of it is I feel powerful. I feel strong, and I have like a playlist that brings me through these states as well. I feel powerful. I feel strong, and I realize that the thoughts that come from that are a little bit different. And then the fourth part is just being totally present, feeling every step, feeling the wind, looking, observing the nature. And then the fifth part is a celebration where I'm just like, I took the 30 minutes for myself today. I deserve, and I'm like, my vibration's getting higher, and I'm tuning into all those kind of emotions. And, my goal is to feel goosebumps, to feel so good on that walk that I literally get goosebumps, and I know I've kind of done the work. But I feel like in activating, a lot of people suppress emotions for a long time. Like, when was the last time they felt so euphoric they had goosebumps, right? It's like I try to do that on a daily basis. And I feel like it allows me to go deeper in my conversations and connect with people at a deeper level. I think most people, though, their hearts are closed. They're very hard on themselves. They may not love themselves. They may not have someone else that they love very much. And, like, when your heart's closed, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
That's, like, the first step. So, like, everyone talks about the importance of feeling grateful, feeling thankful, but you really got to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I go on the walk and I literally I think about my, a friend of mine who I loved who passed away. And like, I think about, my wife, my dogs, my home. And like, I'm so grateful to be able to go on this walk. And like, I fill up, I really fill up. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll like even have a tear, and it's like, and as a man, people are sensitive to talk about that stuff, but that's the truth. That's
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah.
I feel it allows me to connect with people deeper.
Do you think building the businesses and how it's like it forces you to grow as a person and grow spiritually is just the vehicle to grow spiritually more than anything, more than just building the business itself?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, if you look at like the people who are most spiritually advanced in the planet, like,
Yeah.
monks who live in
Yeah.
caves, like they're not building businesses, they're just
Mhm.
meditating,
But I guess is that our version of it?
I think we live in a society where in order to like have comforts and luxuries and be able to stay at a hotel like this and travel nice, you need money.
Of course.
And in order to have money, you need to build a business.
Yep.
But in order to build a business, you need to work on the inner world. So it's like a big circle, right? It's like once you have this stuff, your inner world's more peaceful. Like for example, I was talking to my father-in-law yesterday about like why do I travel and stay in luxury hotels? And it was like, well, if I was staying at like a Motel 6, for example, or the Four Seasons, the Motel 6, I would get there and, the receptionist wouldn't be very nice and maybe the bed would be dirty and there wouldn't be enough water in the room and, we wouldn't be able to set this up.
Yeah.
And like with the Four Seasons, it's like, the odds of me having convenience and feeling good are much higher for pay. And also like as you make more money, the amount that it costs, like even if it's like $2,000 a night, it's proportionally much smaller percentage of like my net worth than it would be in the past.
It's an energy thing. It's
Yeah.
keeping your energy high.
100%. And the odds of like not running into issues and
Yeah.
inconveniences and stresses. But it's like you built the business to make the money, to have more comfort, to have a better inner world, to build the business, to make the money, to have more comfort. So it's kind of a big cycle. But then it's like if you zoom out from there, it's like, well, what's the point of any of this, right? Like, why are we even here? Like, what is life about? It's not about making money. It's not about traveling. It's not about eating good food. It's just about like savoring the little moments. And I think like what you asked is a great question. I don't have an answer for it.
Sure.
But I think that through building a business, you learn about yourself because you feel a lot of stresses, you run into challenges, you overcome them and you grow. And through growing and understanding more, you're able to understand these spiritual growths at a deeper level, which allow you to be better at your business. I think they're hand in hand. I mean, every successful business person I know, they're at least very disciplined. I think discipline is a form of spirituality. And yeah, I don't have like a direct answer, but that's kind of my thoughts on it.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's a good question.
It's overall just like a really good reminder, uh, like I remember too, like when I lived in Boca and was working for you and like went through like my fucking psychonaut phase and taking like 4 grams of mushrooms on the weekend or whatever. And you do feel like a lot of love for yourself and different things, or you are like very present and grateful and all these different emotions. It's just really interesting and I think really useful to hear from somebody who does like to me I feel like there's a big separation in the world. There's like people who are spiritual and care about that kind of stuff, and then there's like people who build successful businesses and have ambition and do all these things. And I think it's really useful to have somebody who does both, because it's like I look at a lot of the people that are like telling me I need to love more, and
You're
like
gonna be
they make me more judgmental,
Right.
because I'm just like, all right, dude, like yeah,
And yeah, and a
But-
lot of those people aren't actually doing what they preach.
100%.
Right.
That's the problem is like most of the people that talk about spirituality are not relatable to people like you and I.
It's super refreshing to see someone else that can, like, I feel like we're both very spiritual to a degree, and that's why we're having this conversation. That's why I even went to that place. But it's super refreshing to see someone that's ahead of us, like yourself, that can have that spiritual conversation.
It's what you're saying though. It is hard to relate to a lot of the people that talk about spirituality, that talk about meditation, talk about love. You're like, well, I don't want to be like that person. So
Yeah.
I don't do any of those
It's
things.
like, you should love yourself so much your girlfriend has 4 other boyfriends. Like, no, I'm good on that, I think.
Yeah, it goes. That it goes too far sometimes. But discipline, keeping a promise to yourself is loving yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing something that's good for you. You're loving yourself, and in turn you'd love yourself more because you did something that's good for you. It doesn't mean like lick your arm and kiss your palm and that's not what it means. It means do things that are good for you, that your high vibrational self knows is good for you.
How do you balance that with, because I think this is the problem like I run into, is like it's not that I don't want to do those things, but it's also like there is an external objective reality of like, oh, like these people need an answer today, or like these, you know what I mean? Like this has to get done.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where it conflicts maybe with the emotional state you want. Like how do you balance that? And
Just wake up earlier. I mean, you got time.
fair enough.
I mean, you also have to prioritize it. Like, for me, it's like if I need to meditate for an hour in the morning and I have all this other shit to do, I'll just get up an hour earlier and I'll meditate. And I always have a better day if I meditate for an hour in the morning than if I don't.
Would you
Every
rather?
single time.
Would you rather skip out on what time do you go to bed?
Like 9:30.
Okay, so would you rather skip out on that extra sleep, that full night of sleep, to get your meditation in, or would you rather get a full night of sleep?
It kind of depends. Like,
Okay.
if I'm running on fumes and like I feel there's also like people oftentimes mistake intuition and impulse. For example, if I want to sleep for 10 hours, that could be my intuition or just me being impulsive.
Yeah.
Right? And when you're not in tune with yourself, it's hard to tell the difference. So there will be times where I think that sleep is more valuable. But I can also calculate it. For example, like today I slept in because like I was in Houston the other day, driving back and forth, like didn't get much sleep. Yesterday I got up at 5. I went on a run with Madeline's family. And like today I was like, I need to get sleep. So I slept for like 10 hours. But I also scheduled the day so that I could get my meditation in. So I could have slept yesterday. I kind of calculated it. So there's no either or. I would say the meditation comes above the sleep 90% of the time, but occasionally you need to just recharge. You need to do nothing. But if you plan your weeks right, you don't have that conundrum, right? So like for me, Saturdays are a kind of a do whatever I want day. It's a cheat day or a celebration day. As long as I'm good for the week, I can eat what I want. I can sleep till whenever I want. I can do whatever I want on a Saturday. The rest of the week, though, I already have planned out, so I don't have to say, do I want to sleep or do I want to get the meditation in? And that's why I'm saying on a Sunday, when you plan your week, you're accounting for the shit that needs to get done. You're accounting for your personal habits. But you can't get the shit done without the personal habits. So you need to put the personal habits in first.
I love it. I'm gonna implement a couple of these things.
We're gonna get you implementing these things for sure.
Why?
I don't know. It's just like a
It's very much like something that I would do. Like
What?
these analytical things and whatnot. It's just like it plays to my strengths. I enjoy it. Anyway, I'm curious about one thing. Why move from Florida to Texas?
Honestly, I was gonna move to Austin because a few of my employees were out there.
Okay.
Boca's not so like up and coming, it's like kind of older. Loved it there, but Austin was like kind of like new Silicon Valley. And I ended up basically just expanding my Zillow search out from Austin to San Antonio, and I was like, holy shit, like you can get some crazy houses in San Antonio for this money. And then I ended up driving to the neighborhood that I'm in now, and it was like right when I drove in, like the lush golf course, like it was like a very established neighborhood, like big trees and like half of the San Antonio Spurs live in there, and it's like just a very classy, nice vibe. And I was like, I'm living here. Like I don't want to live in Austin anymore. So we found a house, and yeah, we just kind of went like life just threw us there. Like didn't have any real reason, honestly.
Are you still golfing a bunch?
I'm golfing probably like on average like 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah, not every day like
How's
I
it
used to.
coming?
It's the same.
Yeah.
I'm not any better. I might be a bit worse. I was playing every day in Boca though.
Yeah, that was a great time. It's funny to be here and just like have this conversation and kind of look back on it. Definitely a very fun time in my life to just like we would be in the office like working, and then Jared would like get an impulse up his ass and like want to go spend some money or do something fun. So we'd like go to Top Golf or whatever. It's just like super fun and really interesting.
Yeah. You are a terrible golfer though.
Yeah, I am now for sure. For sure.
Yeah. It's fun times.
I've been telling you we gotta play.
Yeah.
Been waiting on your clubs, man.
It's a great habit to learn because there's hundreds of beautiful places you could travel for it, and like typically the people that golf are like at a high level,
Yeah.
and it's really fun like once you get good at it. So I think it, and you can play it until you're like 90. So yeah.
Now, while we're still here, before the cameras kind of die on us, what can we expect from you in terms of your social media? Like, what's next for you? What are you trying to build like going forward? And what's your final message, I guess, for the associates?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what to expect. Honestly, I'm just gonna put out things that I want my son to see when he's 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
10 years.
I think it's gonna hit really good with that message.
Yeah, and if it does, like, if I can share experiences I've had that help kind of guide a misguided generation, like, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But all I could do is my best, but I am still very much heads down on my business, so I'm not like, eventually I'll switch 100% to like writing more books and speaking and doing those types of things. Right now, it's just, I'm going to be working with Brian. He's going to be filming. We're going to put out some stuff and kind of see where it goes. I don't have any expectations, honestly. But we'll see. And, from a final message, I mean, I think, people like you guys have a lot of influence on people your age and younger, and we're in a very wounded world right now, like straight up, like, and if it doesn't change, I don't know what it's going to lead to. So I've been saying, like, if somehow we can get everyone in the world to meditate and work out every day, the world would heal itself, right? Most people are waking up, remembering their problems, then they numb their problems with social media or the news, in which case they're being influenced to think that in order to solve their problems, they need to get these things. And then they try to get those things, but they don't get those things because they can't attract those things into their life, because instead of attracting the abundance, they're attracting the lack because they have a separation from those things. And it's a vicious cycle. and it causes people to resent each other and hate each other and believe that in order to get ahead, you have to take other people down. And a lot of people just have it backwards. And it's like the simple truth is that your inner world and your outer world are correlated, but you have to work on the inner world. The outer world works itself out. So, as young guys that have a good audience, I appreciate you having me on and having this conversation. And it allows me to sharpen my sword too, diving in, hearing good questions. But I encourage people listening to realize how important it is to work on your inner world, realize how important discipline is, and how detrimental it is to not keep promises to yourself. It goes much beyond the outcome. If you don't work out, yeah, okay, you might get out of shape. But what's really happening is you're telling yourself that you can't even keep a promise to yourself, so you can't do anything else that comes your way. It's a compounding effect. So my end message is really, stay true to yourselves. Be loving and caring to other people, and
I love it.
It's
great.
keep the good vibes.
Love it, man. I'm obviously great to see you again. It's been a while, been a long time.
Yeah.
And I love the message and super excited for you to see what you put out, because I think it's really important that there are 32-year-old guys that have made money and have a wife and kids and like done all these things externally, who vouch for the merit of some of those internal things.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be working on it.
Love it.
Amazing, guys. That was episode 23. All of Jared's links are in the description. You can go check it out. All of our links are in the description. YouTube, obviously, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the short form. Thanks for watching. Episode 23 is done.
It's a wrap.